What is Goth or Gothic? Though many people can vaguely imagine something Goth or Gothic, I believe it is still difficult to pinpoint exactly what makes something Goth or even Gothic. Since I cannot dictate the meaning of a word, after watching this video, you can comment down your criteria, or it could be your idea about what Goth is, including what Gothic is. If you look up the word Goth on the internet, you may see these as the definition. Number 1. A Germanic tribe that invaded Roman Empire between the 3rd and the 5th centuries. Number 2. A style of rock music emerged around the 80s. In this case, Goth came from the word Gothic rock or Goth rock. Number 3. A subculture or a person who loves Goth rock music. You might also find other definitions like someone who loves to wear black or a rude, barbaric person, even though I know that Goth does not hold any of these meanings to many people. We cannot completely rely on dictionaries to define a word. This is because dictionaries update a word's meaning after we humans develop the meaning in real-life situations, not the other way around. So, from the research on other sites and forums, the most common definition of Goth is either for the Germanic tribe or the people in the Goth subculture, to put it simply, those who love listening to Gothic rock music. To some people, Goth is perceived as the word to describe someone who loves something dark and morbid. For example, Goth girl is a common term used to describe women who always wear black and appreciate the darker side of life. Still, it doesn't mean that these people with Goth girl tropes or characteristics are typically considered Goth, though. In terms of calling yourself as Goth, it is mostly agreed that a person is Goth when they are into Gothic rock music. Meanwhile, everyone can freely explore Gothic things without being Goth. Gothic is an adjective with a more ambiguous meaning. Gothic, by definition, has the following meanings. Number 1. Something resembling Gothic tribes or the Germanic tribes mentioned earlier. Number 2. Relating to architectural style in Northern Europe around the 13th to 15th century. Number 3. Relating to stories in frightening settings popularized around 18th to 19th century. The adjective Gothic appears in Gothic architecture, Gothic literature, Gothic aesthetics, Gothic fonts, and music such as Gothic rock and Gothic metal. One question that many people tend to ask is, does Gothic mean something dark? I would say not quite. Not everything dark is considered Gothic. As you can see, there is not one official criteria of what Gothic is. Gothic can be something relating to Gothic architecture or Gothic literature. That's why the vampire or blood theme or the puffy Lolita dress with coffins patterns can be considered Gothic, while simply wearing all black may not make someone look as Gothic. The very first usage of the word Goth was to describe a barbaric tribe who destroyed the Roman Empire, bringing Europe to the medieval period. Later, it was used to describe the Goth subculture, those who listen to Gothic rock music. If you are wondering how the word evolved from the Germanic tribe to a subculture, I've already explained the entire history of Goth in Goth's 1000 Years of History video. You can watch this video if you want a detailed explanation. But in short, long after the Goth tribe destroyed the Roman Empire, Giorgio Vasari from the Renaissance period around 16th century described the 12th century medieval architecture as Gothic. He perceived the architecture as barbaric, like the tribes that destroyed Rome. Next, the first novel described as Gothic was The Castle of Otranto, a Gothic story by Horace Walpole, which was set in a Gothic castle. In 1967, the term Gothic rock was coined by music critic John Stickney. He described a meeting with Jim Morrison in a dimly lit wine cellar as the perfect room to honor the Gothic rock of the Doors. Gothic rock was inspired by melancholy and dark Gothic literature. Perhaps this is how it became a term for similar rock bands that were inspired by the dark literary genres such as Bauhaus, Sisters of Mercy, Susie and the Banshees, and many others. Meanwhile, Gothic metal incorporates Gothic rock elements into its metal music, hence the name Gothic metal. So, what does it mean to be Goth? Several people believe that Goth is a way of life. They believe in exploring the darker side of human experience and discovering beauty in what others may perceive to be morbid or macabre. But in general, if you're looking for a checklist to becoming a Goth, here is the answer. You just need to like to listen to Goth music. Really, that's all. This is because Goth or the Goth subculture are more concerned with music than how they dress. Wearing black and sharp eyeliners is not a must. And also, a baby bat is a term used to refer to someone who is new to the Goth scene or the culture. Baby bats can be young or old, but they are typically considered new to the scene. Here are some famous Goth bands to get you started. The Cure, Suicides and Banshees, Bauhaus, The Sisters of Mercy, Fields of the Nephilim, Christian Death, Specimen, and The Damned. One of the very first Goth songs is Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bauhaus. My current favorite Goth songs are Lucretia My Reflection by Sister of Mercy and Mephisto Waltz by Mephisto Waltz. Also, being a Goth doesn't mean that you must only listen to Goth music. You can enjoy other genres while being a Goth too. Death rock, metal, dark wave, and synth pop are other music genres that Goth tend to enjoy. Proto-Goth are bands that paved the way for the Goth rock genre. For example, The Velvet Underground, Joy Division, and The Doors. I've heard people use the term darkly inclined to describe those who are into dark stuff like Gothic literature or horror movies. Still, I'm not quite sure I've come across anyone who calls themselves darkly inclined yet, so I think I still need to do a little bit more research on this word. Gothic style takes inspiration from Gothic architecture and Gothic literature. Gothic architecture's prominent traits are its pointed arches, tall skeletal structures, beautiful stained glass, and ornate religious decorations. Gothic literatures are books such as Dracula, Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Island of Dr. Moreau, and The Interview with the Vampire. Since I'm not going to go into the details about the Gothic literature yet in this video, but here are 5 main characteristics or the selling points of Gothic literature that you should be aware of. Number 1. Dark settings. Gothic settings are typically airy and gloomy, including old castles or abandoned locations. Number 2. Terror and horror. Gothic novels usually incorporate descriptive language and suspenseful plots. Number 3. Supernatural elements. Gothic literature often features unexplainable beings such as ghosts, vampires, or other supernatural creatures, like monster in Frankenstein. Dark psychological themes. Gothic stories explore the dark side of human, like obsession or guilt, which can be represented through both the protagonist and antagonist. Romanticism. Gothic literature is associated with Romantic movement, which began around the 1770s, emphasizing individualism, emotion, and imagination. Gothic rock was the very first art and style that was inspired by something Gothic, like Gothic architecture and Gothic literature. The dark themes of Gothic literature inspired the music, lyrics, and visual style of goth rock. Minor keys are frequently used in Gothic rock music to create a sense of melancholy and darkness. Goth rock guitar sounds are commonly distinguished by the heavy use of reverb and delay effects, which produce a haunting atmospheric sound. Later, Gothic fashion was also inspired by the goth rock subculture and the dark themes in Victorian Gothic literature, featuring coffins, bats, vampires, and many more. There are also Gothic internet aesthetics, inspired by the dark themes of Gothic literature and the ornate Gothic churches, cathedral, and other buildings. So people do have different ideas of what goth is. I think everyone can agree that someone who loves goth music is definitely goth. But some people also use the word to describe those who appreciate darker things or Gothic hobbies. I understand that the word goth is for people in the goth music subculture. Still, as time changes, the meaning of a word might get evolved. Therefore, if you ask whether the word goth refers to other group of people who appreciate dark themes rather than people in the Germanic tribe or the subculture or not, there will be both people who answer no and people who answer yes. Nonetheless, if you are not goth, it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy dressing up in Gothic clothes. or enjoying Gothic aesthetics, because something can be Gothic without being Goth, if that makes sense. Because Gothic architecture and Gothic literature are Gothic, but they don't require you to know a lot about Gothic architecture or Gothic literature to be in the Goth subculture. Hi, it's been quite a while since I made a video about something Gothic. It would be pretty weird if I made the Gothic collection playlist and not adding anything to it, right? With that being said, if you enjoy this, give it a like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. Have a great day. Hope to see you on the next journey.